Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Recently, I've been playing around with the Rubik's clock, and in doing some research, I found some interesting methods pro cubers, pro clockers, whatever they use to solve this puzzle. Today we'll be breaking down each method, comparing them, and hopefully influencing you to pick a method that is the best. So without further ado, let's get into it. Oh yeah, quick disclaimer, I'll be breaking down these methods in their simplest form, so I won't go over any skips unless it's absolutely necessary. Before we start breaking down all these methods, I'd like to show you how the clock works. And if you already know how the clock works, skip to that time right there. But if you don't, I highly recommend you watch it. Even if you do know how it works, I highly recommend you watch this because it touches on some important points that I will refer to during the video. So basically how the clock works is how to actually turn it. There are two factors that dictate how to turn the clock, and those are these pins and the dials, or the wheels. Some people call it wheels, some people call it dials, but they're the ones that actually turn the clock, while the pins just dictate which clocks turn. Each pin essentially has its own dial. So the UR pin has the UR dial right here, and it's just the dial closest on its corner. Same with DR, DL, and UL. When a pin is down, I'll use UR for an example, turning the dial will just turn its corner, like so. Along with, if you have multiple down dials, if you turn a down dial, every corner on a pin that's down will turn. That's why I think of it as pairs. So if these two are down, then their respective corners will turn. Now, if the pin is up, all four clocks surrounding the pin are going to move. Same with if I have these two, then all four clocks surrounding all of the up pins will move. So yeah, if I have all four of these pins up, everything moves. If I have just this one, these four. Yeah, pretty easy. So now I'm going to put all the R pins down. And if you realize turning on one of the up wheels, I'll turn everything. And then one of the down wheels, it'll just be the corners. An important thing to note, when a pin is up, we'll do that one. When a pin is up on one side, it's down on the other side. So if you see, I'm holding the same pin here. It's down now. Now it's up. It's kind of hard to see, but. So if you're turning on pins up here, the corner will still turn in the back. And if you're turning on a down pin, all of these will turn. So yeah, if I had let's just say I'm doing a method where we have to do a simultaneous move, and I do that and that. If I do both of these on the back, it'll just be this and then the corners. So yeah, that's just an example. But yeah, next thing, clock notation. So the center clock is the C clock, obviously C for center. And then the edge clocks go U for up, R for right, D for down, and L for left. The corner clocks are just the two closest edge clocks combined, basically. So the U clock and the R clock for this corner is closest to the U and the R clock. So it'll be the UR clock. Same with UL, DR, and DL. So if I would say match the C clock to the U clock, you would just do an intuitive move to match these two clocks. As you can see, now these two are matched. Now, in some of these methods, you'll have to memorize these moves that alter the backside of the clocks. Because again, if a pin is down, it can turn something down here. So let's just say you're here. You would just be able to do that. There are four main ways to memorize which moves you have to do. And in order to understand these, you have to realize that you treat these clocks like an actual clock. So if we said do 2, then it would just be turning clockwise twice. So if it starts at 2, turning clockwise twice, we'll get it to 4 o'clock. Same with like 3 and then 4 and -5 and 6 and whatever. So the first way to memorize this is probably the worst, and it's going from 1 to 12 like normal. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I don't like it because let's just say you had math, if you did math and it got you -3. So if you do that, you would have to memorize 9. And why I don't like that is because they're the same thing, just -3 is faster. Because this is -3 and this is 9. So obviously -3 is faster, especially when clock is such a fast event. It's better to do -3 than to do 9. And to me, it's just counterintuitive to just remember everything in a clockwise perspective. But yeah, that's the worst way. But another kind of trash way is to memorize 1 to 6 like normal, but also -1 to -5. Yeah, so this would be -3. And to memorize that, it takes up like a whole lot of syllables, and you might forget what is negative. And if you do +3 when it's supposed to be negative, see, obviously you do -3 to solve this, but +3, you'll just end up with something like that, and the clock will be barely not solved. So I think it's kind of annoying. But yeah, on to the 2 best ways. And by all means, if you find the negative ways easier, then do those. But the 2 best ways involve letters. And the first way is probably the easiest. And I might switch to this maybe, but I use the last one, and that's the one I'm going to use in this video. But you do 1 through 6 like normal. So this would be 1, that's 3, that's 6, that's 5, whatever. But on the like 7 through 12 o'clock side, you would say -1 would be the letter A, and then B, C, D, E. So you would just remember, if you have to do a -3 to solve this, you would just remember you have to do C. And I think it's nice because if you have like 1, or if you have like 3E, then you would just be able to say, oh, 3E. Yeah. And the final way I do it is the most popular way, actually, and it is converting everything to numbers, specifically their place in the alphabet. So if you have -3, and this keeps in mind -3 is the same thing as 9, what you would see is the 9th letter of the alphabet is I. So what you would do is say, okay, -3 right here, because it's at 9 o'clock, would be I. And so 6 would be F, C, or 3 would be C, and 1 would be A, B, C, D, E, F, and then -5 would be G, H, I, J, K. And then for 0, you can either do O or L. I'll put the code I have on screen right now, just so you can see, just for the visual learners. But for this video, as I just said, I'll be using letters only. And, yeah. During the video, to make things easier, I'll be doing the same scramble for every method, so it's easier to follow along. So if you'd like to follow along, here's the scramble. Start on the lighter side and do these moves. Start with this pin up. So on the darker side, this is what it should look like. And here for the lighter side. Starting off with the flip method, also known as the Pochmann method, but we're going to call it the flip method. It's the most simple, widely used method for solving a clock. It requires no memorization whatsoever and solves the puzzle by matching one clock at a time together until it's solved. So the steps are creating a cross on both sides by making 2 clocks match and just extending the blocks. So we're going to make these 2 match, then these 2, then these 2, then these 2. And after you've done that, you can just flip it over and do the exact same thing again. So now you have two crosses. You don't have to solve this one entirely. But after that, you can just solve the corners in an incredibly easy way. And then you're literally done. It's extremely easy, and it's also very fast, as you can see from this solve with the flip method in competition.
Okay.
Flip it.
The pros and cons list of the flip method is incredibly one-sided. The pros are its simplicity, its speed, and how cool it looks. But it's boring, as it's the beginner method with optimizations, and it's not as insanely fast as some methods with less moves, no flips, or memorization. I highly recommend Flip, as it's technically just a beginner method, but with some optimizations like a set pin order, pretty much a set order to solve the puzzle every time, and taking advantage of skips where two clocks already match, the flip method can become very fast. And I'll talk about a skip real quick. In this scramble, two of these clocks already match, which means you can pretty much skip the first move, which would usually be match these two. And this is called an edge skip. There's a thing as a corner skip, but they're kind of weird. Oh, actually, we have two edge skips. So we can do a different type of flip to take advantage of both of them, but I'll show you how it would go here. Make this cross normal, and then instead of just flipping like that, since there's an edge skip here, we can flip over this corner. And now we have another edge skip that we can use, and actually a really easy solve. So, yeah, there's a lot more to the flip method, but I can't show it in the time that I have here. But there is a great video by a world-class clock solver on how to be good at the flip method in the card right there and in the description. The optimized Pochmann method is, you guessed it, an optimized version of the Pochmann method, which is the flip method. Basically what you do is you start your solve differently to eliminate the D move, which if you recall in flip, you had to do a series of these moves, which are kind of slow. So basically what you would do is start an inspection with both these D pins up. And what you would do is do an X2, like this. But what you would need to do is see these two clocks, the U and the C clock. What you would do is measure how much the U clock has to move to get to the C clock. So you could just see it has to move -1 because it's going counterclockwise 1, so it'd be a negative to match this clock. And what you would do is, since you see that -1, when you start the solve, you would match the D clock to the C clock like normal, but on the top dials where it's already down, you would just do your -1. So in doing that -1, which you'll see in a minute, so you can just finish the cross. In doing that -1, these two are now matched, so you don't have to do the second D move here. So you can just pretty much do the same thing as the flip method, just without the first D move. So this is actually really good with edge skips. So if I give myself a scramble with an edge skip, so as you can see, we have our edge skip here. What we can do is start with this edge skip on the first side and then just do the D move on the second side. So U to C would be -3. So what we would do is do our -3 here and then just finish up our cross. And then we just have no D moves. Yeah. So it sounds like a huge improvement over the flip method, but personally and in practice, I don't think it's really that much of an improvement. It's like ZZ forcing no rotations versus CFOP on 3x3. It's cool, but sometimes simple is better. If you get really good at D moves, then this method sort of becomes obsolete. But if you're bad at D moves, you could go for either of these two methods that are faster, unless it's imperative you do normal flipped after this, which I have no idea why it would be. But the method's also extremely unproven, as pro cubers either use a variant of 7 simul or normal flip, as flip is more ergonomic and 7 simul is faster. So yeah, that's pretty much the optimized Pochmann method. 10 Move Memoless is a relatively new method that I think is extremely underrated, as most people don't like it. It's a method that's more advanced than flip, but with a slight dip in ergonomics. The big knock on 10 Move Memoless is that it's extremely unproven, as methods like flip and 7 simul are more popular and proven to be fast. But this method is not shabby at all. This is a solve done with 10 Move Memoless in a competition. Before I show how this method works, this is a modified version of 10 Move Memoless. So if you go click the link on the 10 Move Memoless category, it'll take you to a video. In the comments of that video is the method that I'll be showing you. I think it's better, and it is better, but here's how this method works. So first of all, you're gonna make an L shape in the top left corner with these two clocks, or these three. You're going to match the top clock to the left clock and the top left clock to the left clock. So you're going to start with this pin up. And you're just going to match the top clock to the left one and the top left one, like that. Then you're going to switch to this bottom pin and you're going to match the bottom one. So you have this block. And then you can pretty much solve cross like normally. So you can match C to D and then C to R. And this time you don't have to align it to 12. We do that at the end. And then you're just going to flip. You're just going to flip. And then you're going to make the 2x2 block again. Now, instead of just matching C to D, you're going to match C to R, but also match DR to D. So you're matching these two and also these two. So as you can see, these two are matched, and now we have that giant block. Now you're going to connect these blocks in this pin position. As you can see, well, if you can see, these two pins are up. You're going to connect those blocks, and then you're going to put this pin up, match these two opposite corners together, and yeah, now you have that. Now we have a skip actually. So usually you'll have something like this, which you would just align everything to 12 after that. And then if you flip it over, you're done. This method sounds so much harder than it is. There's no memorization, just those simultaneous moves that I was talking about in the How the Clock Works segment. The only knock on this method is its lack of popularity. The videos about this method are from Not Me Cubes and are in the description. Weird how he uses 7 simul now. Sheerin is a method with fast times and pretty easy memorization. Fun fact, Sheerin is just a different pin order version of the low method, which is the most advanced clock method. Thank you, Clock Solvers Discord. This is the fastest official solve ever done with Sheerin. And let's get into the method. In Sheerin, you memorize 5 numbers. In this demonstration, from here, I would do a Y2 and memorize from the back with this angle. But really, you can memorize from anywhere. Firstly, you would memorize what the R clock needs to do to get to the U clock, which would be -4. And then the L clock to the D clock, which is -3. Add those two numbers together, and that's your first number, which for me would be -7 or E, because it's 5. So you have E as your first number. The next 3 numbers are incredibly simple, as it's just the D clock to the L clock, C, the U clock to the C clock, I, and the L clock to the C clock, H. The last number requires a tiny bit of math. Take the R clock and subtract M4 from it. There's a way to make the math a bit simpler though. If M4 is negative, drop the negative and imagine the R clock going clockwise by that number. So if M4 is positive, you would just imagine the R clock going counterclockwise. So if M4 was -3 and R was at 10 o'clock, R could go forward 3 and it would be at 1 o'clock. If M4 was +3, however, R would go backward 3 and it would be at -5, so it would be G. But for me, R is at 5 o'clock and M4 is H, or -4. -4 is probably negative, I think. So you would take the R clock and make it go clockwise 4 times. So it lands at -3, and our M5 is I. Our memo for this scramble is ECIHI. We just did that, but yeah, ECIHI. Now do a Y2 flip, and you can begin solving. So you start the timer and go. So you would start with the DL dial up. And on the pins down, you would do your M5, which is kind of weird. You just start with the last letter. But our M5 is I, so we would do I. So you do that, and then at the same time as doing that, you're going to match C to U. So it would be that and that at the same time. So it would be that. Now you're just going to build most of the cross. You're going to build the entire left side of the cross normally. You would go UR and do it like that. And you have to do it in this exact pin order. So yeah, you're just matching C to L and C to D. Now you should have both the L pins up. And what you would do is do M1 with your right hand. So our M1 was E, so we would do E with our right hand. And then you would finish off cross like that. And you're not going to match them yet. But, yeah. Then put the DR pin up, so now UR is the only pin down. Do M2 with your left, which is C. And then just match the cross to this corner. Now, put the DR pin down and do M3, which is I again. And then match it. And then UL with M4, so it's H. And then you would just solve this last corner as you would in flip. So now, if you did it right, the other side should be solved. Sheerin was extremely popular until 7 Simul came along, but it's still extremely fast. It's fun, pretty easy in its basic terms at least, and looks cool. The only problem is 7 Simul Flip is very easy too, but it's faster. Sheerin's still a great method to use, it's just a little outdated. But this next method is extremely underrated. This next method is the Alyz method, and it is probably the most unknown method, but it is considered the infancy of 7 Simul Flip, so that's good. We're going to get to 7 Simul Flip later, by the way. Alyz and 7 Simul Flip are very similar, but Alyz has some of the easiest memorization ever. No exaggeration. You memorize 4 numbers plus an optional 5th one. The memorization is so easy that this segment of me explaining it is very, very short. But if you somehow already know this method, skip to this time right here. But anyways, back to the method. Firstly, I'm going to start from this side, and the first thing you do is do an X2 flip. And what you're going to do from here is measure the R clock to the U clock, which would be -3, because you can see -3, like so. So you're not going to do it right now, but you take -3 and you would do the code and get I. Secondly, we measure that U clock to the C clock, which is -1, or K. Then you flip and do literally the same exact thing. So for me, the third letter would be B, and the fourth one is A. Now, if you want to do the 5th one, which I highly recommend, measure the C clock to the L clock and apply that number to the R clock. So C to L is -2. You apply that to the R clock, you get -4. But the thing is, you're actually going to multiply by a negative. You're going to do, Here, I'll show you. So R would be at -4. You need to do the positive version of that to solve this clock. So you would just say +4. And so if it was at +4, you're essentially just taking what it would do to solve. So here, you need to do -4 to solve. But since we're at -4, you would have to do +4, if that makes sense. So our number would be +4, which would be D. So we have I, K, B, A, D. So yeah, just a little thing. We actually do the first letter, then the second one, then the fifth one. Then it'd be the third and the fourth. But anyways, that's our memo. Here's how we do it. The first one is an intuitive one. With the UR pin up, match C to D. As you can see, these two match. Then put up the DR pin, but don't put down the UR pin. Keep both of these up. And do your first letter with your left hand. And then match C to L with your right hand. So we would do I and match C to L. Not this corner will not always match this one. It just happens to during the scramble. But you should really just see that these three match right here. Now you're going to put the DL pin up, as you can see. And with your left hand, you're going to do the second letter, which for me is K. And with your right hand, do the fifth one, which was D. And if you didn't do that fifth letter, just remember you're making sure that R is solved. So yeah, then you're going to flip, match C to D with the UR pin again, and you should see you have this entire side matched. Now put the DR pin up, and with your left hand, do the third letter, which was B. And as you can see, these two don't match again. And with your right hand, finish the cross, like so. Push the DL pin up, do M4 with your left hand, which was A, and just solve the cross to match that corner. Then you can just finish the corners as if you were doing flip method. And boom, it's solved. Alyz is an extremely easy method, and it is very, very similar to 7 Simul Flip, as you have no D moves. The problem is it's slightly slower and less efficient. People love how easy it is, but there is a variant of 7 Simul Flip that is only a tad bit harder, but also a lot faster. Overall, I love this method, but similar to Sheerin, it's just a bit outdated and a little inefficient. Now for the big giants. 7 Simul Flip is a very popular method for clock, but you already knew that. It involves memorization and simultaneous moves, but you also already knew that. As I said in the description of the Alyz method, 7 Simul Flip and Alyz are very similar. They both have no D moves, but Alyz just solves the cross in one corner. 7 Simul solves everything, but in less moves. One of the big upsides of 7 Simul is that there are so many different variations of it. The two main ones that I recommend are the B-Paul method, as it is the easiest memo, and it's only a tad bit harder than Alyz, and the Tommy version 2 variant specifically, as it's considered the fastest due to its pin order, but also has slightly harder memorization. I'll be showing you the B-Paul method in this video, as it's the most popular, and also created the greatest YouTube video of all time, but I'll have resources on both of these methods in the description. So there are 6 letters to memorize, and they're also probably the easiest letters to memorize. And yeah, this method also allows you to start on any side and any direction, but to make it easier to see, I will start on the white side with 12 facing up, as I have every other time. You're going to take the R to D, which for me would be -2. Do X2, apply it to the UL clock, so -2, it would be right here. And measure what the L clock needs to do to get to that imaginary position. So to get here, it needs to do -1, so that's our first number. It's just K. Now staying on this side, you're going to measure U to C, which is also K, and L to U, which is F. Now do literally the exact same thing just on this side. So R to D is -1, then apply it to UL, and do L to UL. So that letter is B, and then U to C is A, and L to U is A again. So yeah, it's very easy. You just have, for this memo, you have K, K, F, B, A, A. Now for the execution, which is done on the side that you started and finished on, so it'd be white with 12 on top. Start with all the pins pushed up except for UR. With your left hand, do M1, and with your right hand, do M2, which is essentially just the first and the second memorized letters. M just means memorize. So we had KK, so both of these are K. They're not always the exact same, but in this case they are. Now push the DR pin down, and with your left hand, you're going to match D to R. You're going to match these two diagonal clocks. And then with your right hand, you're going to do M3. So our M3 was F, so we're going to do that, and then match D to R. Now push the UL pin up, and you're going to make this 2x2 block down here. So you're going to match the center one by using your left hand on that pin, and then using your right hand on the top dial, since remember all these corners turn, match that corner to make a 2x2 block. Now push down the UL pin and push up the DR pin. Then you're just going to flip over. Now you pretty much repeat the first three steps. So you're going to do M4 with your left and M5 with your right, which if you remember was B, A. Now you're going to push the DR pin down. And then again, with your left hand, you're going to match these two. And with your right hand, you're going to do M6. Now you're just going to make that block again. And again, you don't have to use D moves here. You're just going to do that. And then actually, we just got to skip. But now you're just going to have these two diagonal pins up. Make sure it's UL and DR. And then you're just going to match everything to 12. Normally, you might have something like this, in which you would just have to do that and that. But we just had something like that. And then, yeah, you're done. So this method is literally so easy that it's hard to explain. It's probably the most well-rounded clock method. All of these variants, they all have different amounts of fast, fun, and whatever. But yeah, this one is obviously the more easy method. But you have many variants to choose from if you want speed, funness, or easiness, or anything. It's not as fast as 7 Simul without a flip, but it's close. And it may have a bit of a learning curve, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, now for the method that pretty much revived clock, and it is undeniably the hot new thing. 7 Simul Noflip. As I said, this method pretty much revived clock as an event, and there are two popular subsets of this method, which are B-Pol, which is the easier one, which is kind of easy, but not really, and Tommy's, which is the more complicated, but the much, much faster one. At the time of recording, the newest world record single and the only sub-2 official solve, a 1.97 by Brendan Dunnigan, was done using this Tommy version of 7 Simul. I'll be overviewing the Tommy version in this video as it is more popular and faster, but I might make a full tutorial on both methods as well as some of the 7 Simul Flip methods in the future. Also, if you already understand this method, then you should skip to this time. And I have links to Tommy's tutorial and the tutorial I specifically learned from and find a little bit easier to understand in the description. Now for the memorization. Firstly, we pick a side. Usually we'll just pick the side that we get the clock from. And usually it's just the white side with 12 facing up. You're just going to do an X2 and you're going to memo from here. So usually you can memo from anywhere, but just to make it easier, just do the X2 as you're learning. So firstly, we're going to figure out how many notches are between the D and the C clock, which for us would be -3. And so that's literally our first number. Convert it using the code and we get I. Then we're going to go look at this R clock. We're going to take that to DR, which is +3. We're going to flip to the front side again, we're going to apply it to this U clock. So it would be at 3 o'clock now. Then you're going to take this L clock and do L to U, but the imaginary U position. So it would be at 3 o'clock. So the L clock would be, it would need to go forward 4. So 4 is our second number, or D. Then we have 2 easy numbers, actually. You're going to flip again and calculate the move to match R to D, which is our third number, which is -1 or K. Then flip again to see U to L, which is also K for us, coincidentally. Usually those two are not the same, but that's besides the point. Now for the 2 hardest numbers we'll talk about in this video. Take the U clock, calculate U to UR, which is -5, apply it to the C clock, and then do D to C, which is 0. We're lucky it's 0. We're going to apply that 0 to this L clock, so it doesn't move. Then do UL to L, so that's -1. You're going to apply that here, and just take its position relative to 12. So it'd be here, it'd be at 1 o'clock, and 1 would be our 5th number, which 1 or A. Now for the last number, you will take the U clock, or C to U, which is 1 for us, apply it to the D clock, and just take its position again. So it'd be 2. Then you're going to flip again, apply it to the UL clock, and then do L to UL, which would be here, and so it'd be 5. Then do 5 on this DR clock, so it'd be right here, and measure R to DR, so that would just be 1 again, so A. So our full memo is IDKKAA. Pretty easy, but now you can finally solve. Push the DR pin down and have everything else up. Now with your left hand on the D moves, do your first number, which would be I for us. And then on the top pins with your right hand, do your second one, which is D. Then push down this UL pin, and then do the third letter with your left hand and your fourth letter with the left hand. These are both K, so it would just be that. And on your fourth letter, you don't have to see this if you're confident in your memorization, but if you're not, on your fourth letter, you should just see these two match up. Now you're going to make a block here. Push this pin down and match the center one to these two with the DR pin, and then with the UL dial, match the corner. Now you're going to do a slice move. So you're going to put up that pin around the block. And then you're going to do your 5th letter with your left hand and your 6th one with your right, which are both A. So pretty easy. Now for intuitive moves. The rest of these are intuitive moves. Push this pin down. Match this block and this corner to this edge. Match it to the D clock. You should see the D clock didn't move, but the rest of this moved. And now you have all of this solved. Then put this pin up and do the same thing, but for here. Match this giant block in this corner to the R clock. Now, and look, we have a skip again. Usually it'll be something like that, but now we'll just match everything to 12. And if you did it right, it should be solved. And yeah, it is actually solved. It's just you can not see 12 very well. So like so. And yeah, it should be solved. 7 simul is an extremely difficult method when starting out. You might flip and you might have, let's just say you did something wrong like that. You might flip and you might have a DNF. It might be even one singular clock, which is very, very annoying. So if we fix it, so it'd be, boom. That should fix it in theory. Yeah. So you might flip and have a DNF even by 1 clock. I remember very vividly trying this method. It took me 400 solves just to get an average of 12 that wasn't a DNF. I DNF'd that many times. But the payoff is massive. Almost every world-class solver uses 7 simul. While it is a giant time commitment, if you're trying to get world-class, this is the method for you. It's the fastest method out there. So now to answer the question, which method is best for you? We talked about all of these methods, and here's my judgment. We can immediately get rid of these three methods. Those are optimized Pochmann, Sheerin, and Alyz. They're just too outdated. While I love Sheerin and Alyz, they just don't hold up to the others' efficiency and ergonomics, and optimized Pochmann isn't even that much of an optimization anyways. So now we have 4 methods left, and all of them apply to different people. If you want to do clock and you really don't care about it though, you just want it to be on your profile, then flip is the method for you. It's very easy, it's fun, and it gets the job done without needing anything fancy. It's just there on your profile. It's also very fast if you choose to get good at it. But yeah, if you don't really care about clock, do flip. If you're the person that doesn't care about clock but wants a cool method to use, whether for bragging rights or just to make your WCA page look cooler, do 10 Move Memoless. It can be almost as fast as flip, but looks cooler, has fewer moves, and is also very, very fun. If you like clock but you can't memorize things to save your life, then it's your choice between 10 Move Memoless and flip. Test them both and see which one is best for you. Flip and 10 Move Memoless are extremely close. Basically, if you don't care about clock enough to practice, enough to learn memorization, then do either flip or 10 Move Memoless. Before I get to the cool kids who want to memo and clock, I just want to say that all of this is your choice. If you like 7 Simul Flip, but you like flip more, do flip. Clock is for fun. Do what you like more. Now for the cool kids who want to be speedy. I say that like the other two aren't that fast. But you have 3 options. 7 Simul Noflip, B-Paul 7 Simul Flip, and Tommy 7 Simul Flip V2. Also, V1 is good, but V2 is better. If you want to memorize, but you're not great with math, and you're also like me, but slow with math, then there's one method that is perfect for you. B-Paul 7 Simul Flip. It's perfect. It's fast, both easy and quick memo. It's not as fast as the other two, but it's still very, 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 very easy and still fast. But I urge you guys to try the other ones. They're very fun, and depending on how much time you want to put in, they're not only faster than B-Paul, but if you put in like months and months of practice, the memorizing is also very easy. Now for the last 2 methods. They rely entirely on if you can do D moves with your pinky fingers. And what I mean by that is that if you need to use your thumb, or even worse, if you need to rotate, then do Tommy V2. There's no D moves. It's very fast. The memorizing is still very weird, but it's very, very fast. It's, I think, the 2nd fastest method in the world now. But if you can do D moves, or if you want to break a world record, or if you want to learn how to do D moves, do 7 Simul Noflip. It's the fastest method out. All of the top solvers use this method for a reason. It's extremely fast. But in the end, pick which one appeals to you the most. And feel free to change when you want. I personally am working on 7 Simul Noflip, but it takes me 30 seconds to do the memorization. And inspection is 15 seconds still. So, yeah. But yeah, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and happy clocking.